Have you ever walked into a room and felt your worth shrink to the size of other people's glances? Maybe a teacher wrote you off, a boss overlooked you, or a friend joked about your average talent, so often that the echo became a label you quietly wore. You start measuring yourself by price tags others stick on you. A few kind words when you perform, silence when you fail, applause for someone else while you stand in the corner, counting reasons you don't belong. But what if those labels were never measuring you, only their own limits? What if your value was not a number to be negotiated, but a nature to be discovered? What if where you place yourself matters as much as who you already are? Stay with me to the end of this story. It won't shout. It won't argue. It will simply hold up a mirror that most of us avoid. The mirror that asks whether we've been letting small places set small prices on something that was never for sale. Tonight we follow a young man who feels worthless, a quiet father who knows better, and a stone that appears ordinary until the right eyes see it. And as the dust of markets and museums settles, a truth rises that could change how you carry your own name. If you've ever felt underestimated, misread, or misplaced, this is for you. Keep listening. Your worth is about to step into the light. In a quiet village surrounded by hills and winding dirt paths, a young man lived with his father in a modest home. Life there was simple. The rhythm of the market each morning, the sound of animals in the fields, the laughter of neighbors echoing through narrow streets. Yet inside the young man's heart, there was a silence heavy with doubt. He often compared himself to others, friends who were stronger, neighbors who seemed more successful, people who always appeared to know their place. Every day he woke with the same gnawing thought: I am worth so little. Maybe I will never be enough. His father would sometimes notice his distant gaze, the way his shoulders curved inward, as though he were trying to hide from the world. The young man's flaw was not laziness or arrogance, but the absence of belief in himself. He looked outward for every measure of his worth, and the answers he found only made the hollow inside grow larger. When people ignored him, he thought he was invisible. When they mocked him, he thought he was small. He carried their judgments like stones in his pocket, each one weighing him down further. But one evening, as the lanterns in their home flickered against the wooden walls, the father decided it was time for his son to learn a lesson that words alone could never teach. He picked up a small stone from a carved box on the shelf, a stone that glimmered faintly even in the dim light. He handed it to his son and said gently, "Take this tomorrow. Go out and ask its price. Don't sell it. Just bring back the answers." The young man looked at the stone, puzzled. He had no idea how this simple object could lift the shadow of doubt inside him. Yet something in his father's eyes told him this was not a request, but a doorway. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the village rooftops as the young man stepped into the crowded marketplace. The mysterious stone hidden carefully in his palm. His father's words echoed in his mind. Ask for its price, but do not sell it. The instructions sounded so simple, almost foolish. How could asking strangers about a stone reveal anything about his life? Still, he obeyed. He first approached a vegetable seller, a woman busy arranging bundles of herbs on a wooden stall. She squinted at the stone, then laughed softly. "A shiny pebble," she said. "I'll give you 2 coins. Maybe I can use it as decoration in my garden." The young man nodded politely, though his chest sank lower. 2 coins, barely enough for a loaf of bread. Later, he went to the goldsmith's shop at the edge of the square. The goldsmith examined the stone under a small lens, his brows tightening in concentration. "Interesting," he murmured. "It's not ordinary. I'll pay 500 coins for it." The offer startled the young man. 500 was no small sum. Yet, remembering his father's warning, he shook his head and walked away, confusion knotting inside him. At sunset, he carried the stone to the city's museum. The curator, an elderly man with silver hair, took one glance before his eyes widened. He called over assistants, and together they whispered in awe. Finally, the curator spoke. "Young man, this is priceless. This stone belongs not to a market stall or a gold counter, but to history itself. It is a treasure beyond measure." The young man stood frozen. In one day, the same stone had been called worthless, valuable, and finally beyond price. His mind churned. What was his father trying to show him? He didn't yet understand, but he felt the weight of the lesson pressing closer. As the young man walked back from the museum, the stone clutched tightly in his hand. His thoughts collided like waves in a storm. How could one object stir such wildly different reactions? At the market, it was barely worth 2 coins. At the goldsmith's, it was a small fortune. At the museum, it was priceless. The same stone, 3 different judgments, 3 different worlds. The path home felt longer that evening. Every step carried the weight of confusion. He replayed the laughter of the vegetable seller in his mind, the seriousness of the goldsmith's gaze, the reverence of the museum curator's voice. Each scene cut into him in a different way. The laughter had made him feel invisible, as if he was nothing. The goldsmith's offer made him question whether value was only about money. The curator's awe left him speechless, overwhelmed by the possibility that what seemed ordinary could actually be extraordinary. When he reached the house, his father was waiting on the porch. "Well?" the father asked, his tone calm but knowing. The son recounted each encounter: the insult at the market, the surprising offer at the gold shop, the reverence at the museum. As he spoke, emotions poured out: anger, disbelief, hope, and a tinge of shame. He finished with a heavy sigh. "I don't understand, Father. How can one thing be worthless in one place, worth hundreds in another, and priceless somewhere else?" Which is true. His father didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked, "And how did you feel each time?" The young man hesitated. "At the market, I felt small, like I was carrying nothing. At the gold shop, I felt noticed, but only as long as the price was high. At the museum, I felt something I've never felt before, like I was holding something sacred." The father nodded. "That is the test, my son. Not the stone's journey, but your own. You felt what happens when the world decides your worth. You bent low when they dismissed you. You stood taller when they praised you. But you are the same person in all those places, just as the stone was the same stone. Do you see?" The son lowered his eyes. He realized he had been living this same struggle long before the stone. Every insult, every compliment, every comparison, he had let others shape him like clay. He had forgotten that his value was not a bargain to be made. The silence stretched between them, heavy yet clarifying. Finally, the father placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You needed to walk through the market, the gold shop, and the museum so you could feel the trap for yourself. Words would not have been enough. Only by being tested could you see how fragile your sense of worth had become." The young man gripped the stone tighter, tears stinging his eyes. For the first time, he understood the struggle wasn't about proving his value to the world, but about reclaiming it for himself. The test was not outside. It was inside. That night, lying awake under the wooden beams of their small home, he stared at the stone on the table beside him. It hadn't changed, Yet everything about it seemed different now. And in its quiet glimmer, he caught a reflection of something he had forgotten. His own hidden worth, waiting to be placed where it truly belonged. The next morning, the young man awoke with the stone still beside him, its faint shimmer catching the first light of dawn. He turned it in his hands, as if searching for an answer written on its surface. When he walked into the kitchen, his father was already waiting, quietly sipping tea. "Father," the son began, his voice unsure, "I saw how each person valued the stone differently. But what does it mean for me?" The father set his cup down, eyes steady and gentle. "It means, my son, that the value of the stone never changed. Only the eyes that judged it did. At the market, it was seen as decoration. At the gold shop, as profit. At the museum, as treasure. But in truth, it was always priceless. Its worth did not depend on their opinion. It simply revealed who they were." The words settled deep in the young man's chest. He realized then that he had been living as though he were in the market, letting careless voices sell him cheap. Other times, he stood like the gold shop, seeking validation from those who measured everything in numbers and status. Rarely had he placed himself in the museum, where eyes could see the truth of who he was without discount or bargain. His father leaned closer. "You are like this stone. Your worth does not shrink when someone mocks you, nor does it grow when someone flatters you. It simply is. But if you spend your life handing yourself to the wrong hands, you will start to believe their price tags. That is why you must be careful where you place yourself, and even more careful about how you see yourself." A stillness filled the room. The son's heart, once heavy with doubt, now swelled with something different. Clarity. He thought about all the times he had dismissed his dreams, abandoned his efforts, silenced his voice because others had not recognized it. He had believed their limited vision more than his own inner truth. The father placed the stone back into its carved box. "Remember this lesson. The world will always have markets, gold shops, and museums, but you must decide where you belong. And even when no one sees, even when no one applauds, your value remains untouched." The son nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes, not of sadness, but of awakening. The stone had not changed. His father had not changed. Only he had. And in that moment, he carried a truth that could never again be priced or diminished. His value was never in question. Life lesson. Your true worth is not defined by others' opinions. It is constant, unshakable, and revealed most fully in the right place and the right time. Don't hand your self-esteem to those who cannot see beyond their own limits. Instead, trust the quiet truth within you. You are already priceless. The sun dipped low that evening, painting the sky in strokes of gold and crimson. The young man stepped outside, breathing in the cool air, the memory of the day's lesson still alive in his chest. In his mind's eye, he no longer saw himself as the boy hunched beneath other people's opinions. He saw himself as the stone, unchanging in essence, waiting only for the right place to shine. Life, he realized, would always be filled with voices. Some would laugh and dismiss him as ordinary. Others would measure him only by what he could provide, and a rare few would recognize the depth of his worth. But none of these voices had the power to define him, not unless he surrendered that power. He thought of the museum curator's awed whisper, "This is priceless." It was not the stone alone that deserved that description. It was every soul that walks this earth, often unaware of the treasure they carry within. How many people, he wondered, spend their whole lives in markets that cannot see them, never daring to seek the museum where their true worth belongs. As twilight spread across the village, the young man's heart burned with a quiet conviction. His father's lesson had given him more than knowledge. It had given him freedom. Freedom to stop chasing approval. Freedom to stop shrinking under laughter. Freedom to walk with dignity, knowing his value was never a question. And so the story leaves us with this image, a simple stone glowing faintly in the dark, untouched by the noise of the world. Like that stone, your worth does not depend on recognition. It depends on truth. Believe in it. Carry it. And when doubt whispers otherwise, remember, you are priceless. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who may be doubting their own worth today. A friend, a sibling, or even a stranger who needs to hear that they are priceless. Let this reminder travel further than one voice, because sometimes a single story can change a life. And if you'd like more stories like this, tales that awaken hope, courage, and clarity, make sure to subscribe to Inspire Through Stories. Every week, we bring you parables that remind you who you are and what you carry inside. Don't just watch, be part of this journey. Remember, your true value is never in doubt.